All right, back to The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. So last time I was talking about Ben Weatherstaff, and now I'm going to talk about Martha. Well, actually, I talked about Martha a little bit before. But there's a little bit more to talk about with Martha. So Martha tells Mary, so there's actually more about the secret garden. Okay. Martha tells Mary about the secret garden. Okay. Um, Page 36. What's on page 36? Let's see. Hmm. Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so talking about Mr. Craven, Archibald Craven, and Martha. So this is Martha talking? Yeah. Yeah, because on the page before it said, okay. So actually at the very end of page 35, so it says, Then Martha gave up her store of knowledge. Mind, she said, Mrs. Medlock said it's not to be talked about. There's lots of things in this place that's not to be talked over. That's Mr. Craven's orders. His troubles are none servant's business, he says. But for the garden he wouldn't be like he is. It was Mr. Craven's garden that she had made when first they were married. It was Mrs. Craven's garden that she had made when first they were married, and she just loved it, and they used it to tend the flowers themselves. And none of the gardeners was ever let to go in. Him and her used to go in and shut the door and stay there hours and hours, reading and talking, and she was just a bit of a girl, and there was an old tree with a branch bent like a seat on it, and she made roses grow over it, and she used to sit there. But one day when she was sitting there, the branch broke and she fell on the ground and was hurt so bad that next day she died. The doctors thought he'd go out of his mind and die too. Mr. Craven. Archibald. That's why he hates it. No one's never gone in since, and he won't let anyone talk about it. All right. I guess that's all I wanted to say on this page. All I wanted to read. Yeah, okay. Mary finds the key to the garden. Page 58, description of the secret garden. Okay. All right, so this is the start of chapter 9, the strangest house anyone ever lived in, but it's talking about the garden here. It was the sweetest, most mysterious looking place anyone could imagine. The high walls which shut it in were covered with the leafless stems of climbing roses which were so thick that they were matted together. Mary Lennox knew they were roses because she had seen a great many roses in India. All the ground was covered with grass of a wintry brown, and out of it grew clumps of bushes which were surely rose bushes if they were alive. There were numbers of standard roses which had so spread their branches that they were like little trees. There were other trees in the garden, and one of the things which made the place look strangest and loveliest was that climbing roses had run all over them, and swung down long tendrils which made light swaying curtains, and here and there they had caught at each other, or at a far-reaching branch, and had crept from one tree to another, and made lovely bridges of themselves. There were neither leaves nor roses on them now, and Mary did not know whether they were dead or alive, but their thin gray or brown branches and sprays looked like a sort of hazy mantle spreading over everything. Walls and trees, and even brown grass, where they had fallen from their fastenings and run along the ground. It was this hazy tangle from tree to tree which made it all look so mysterious. Mary had thought it must be different from other gardens which had not been left all by themselves so long, and indeed it was different from any other place she had ever seen in her life. "How still it is," she whispered, "how still." Then she waited a moment and listened at the stillness. The robin who had flown to his tree top was still as all the rest. He did not even flutter his wings. He sat without stirring and looked at Mary. "No wonder it is still," she whispered again. "I am the first person who has spoken in here for 10 years." She moved away from the door, stepping as softly as if she were afraid of awakening someone. She was glad that there was grass under her feet, and that her steps made no sounds. She walked on she walked under one of the fairy-like gray arches between the trees and looked up at the sprays and tendrils which formed them. "I wonder if they are all quite dead," she said. Is it all a quite dead garden? I wish it wasn't." Okay. All right. So that's a description of the garden. Now, Mary meets Dickon. Now there's a funny name. Dickon. Dickon. I've never heard this name anywhere else. Dickon. Uh, yeah, Mary meets Dickon, who is Martha's brother. That's on page 71. Dickon introduction paragraph. 71. Okay. There was a laurel-hedged walk which curved round the secret garden and ended at a gate which opened into a wood in the park. She thought she would skip round this walk and look into the wood, and see if there were any rabbits hopping about. She enjoyed the skipping very much, and when she reached a little gate, she opened it and went through because she heard a low, peculiar whistling sound and wanted to find out what it was. It was a very strange thing indeed. She quite caught her breath as she stopped to look at it. A boy was sitting under a tree with his back against it, playing with a rough wooden pipe. He was a funny-looking boy, about 12. He looked very clean, and his nose turned up, and his cheeks were as red as poppies, and never had Mistress Mary seen such round and such blue eyes in any boy's face. And on the trunk of the tree he leaned against, a brown squirrel was clinging and watching him, and from behind a bush near by, a cock pheasant was delicately stretching his neck to peep out, and quite near him were two rabbits sitting up and sniffing with tremulous noses, and actually it appeared as if they were all drawing near to watch him and listen to the strange low little call his pipe seemed to make. When he saw Mary, he held up his hand and spoke to her in a voice almost as low as and rather like his piping. "Don't the move," he said. "It'd flight 'em. It'd flight 'em." Mary remained motionless. He stopped playing his pipe and began to rise from the ground. He moved so slowly that it scarcely seemed as though he were moving at all. But at last he stood on his feet, and then the squirrel scampered back into the branches of his tree. The pheasant withdrew his head, and the rabbits dropped on all fours and began to hop away, though not at all as if they were frightened. "I'm Dickon," the boy said. "I know thou'rt Miss Mary." Then Mary realized that somehow she had known at first that he was Dickon. Who else could have been charming in rabbits and pheasants as the natives charmed snakes in India? He had a wide, red, curving mouth, and his smile spread all over his face. And there's some illustration, some nice illustration in the book. And this is an illustration of what I just read. So I thought that was kind of funny because it seemed like a scene from a Disney movie. Uh, I'm not sure which one I was thinking of, but maybe there might have been a few Disney movies. Maybe it was Snow White, where they're in like the woods and all these. She's probably singing, and there's all these animals around her. They're attracted to her and to singing. Bunch of animals. So I thought that was funny. Just like Disney movie.